Hello and welcome to How to Light and Shoot Interviews for Television and Broadcast. My name's Nigel Cooper, and throughout this training DVD I'm going to show you one of the most commonly used methods for lighting people in interview situations. It's called the three-point lighting setup, and it's a technique that's been used in the broadcast industry for many years now, and for very good reason. The actual lights that I'm using throughout this DVD is my own personal kit that I use on my everyday productions. It's incredibly well made, it should last me a lifetime, and above all, the quality of light that they output is just fantastic. I'd rather spend a bit more money and get good quality kit like this that will last me a lifetime, as opposed to buying more budget kit that may need replacing every 3 or 4 years, and in the long run, budget kit will end up costing you a lot more. What I've got here is a complete portable studio that collapses down into one neat little bag on wheels. It consists of a key light, a fill light, a backlight, a background light, complete with 2 softboxes, a projection lens and a selection of Gobos and gels, along with many other accessories too. Good quality lighting is vital in today's modern HD video productions, especially if you want to stay ahead of the competition. Many lighting cameramen and video production companies don't pay anywhere near enough attention to their lighting, and they often end up with rather flat and dull looking images. The very word photography comes from the Latin photos and graphia, which means light and draw, hence to draw with light. Without light, there would simply be no image, so it's vital that you know how to manipulate and control the lighting to achieve broadcastable and professional images. So let's take a look at the lighting equipment that I'm going to be using throughout this DVD. The main light that I'm going to be using today for the key light is made by Photoflex, and it's called the Starlight. This tough little light is a continuous tungsten light output that's been designed to be used with a large softbox. The 1000-watt tungsten bulb is placed inside the softbox, which results in higher efficiency, and it also produces a much higher quality of light due to the way it distributes light to the front face of the softbox. The actual case that the Starlight is built into is aluminium, and it acts as a heat sink which draws heat away from the front face of the softbox, keeping your subject a lot cooler. The Starlight produces a soft, even light that wraps around your subject beautifully. So here we have the Photoflex Starlight with the large silver dome softbox mounted directly onto it. The silver dome softbox is incredibly well made, and it's made out of a tough, heat-proof material. To either side of the softbox, we've got these 2 flaps that allow heat to be vented out of the back of the softbox, keeping heat away from the front face, hence keeping your talent cooler. This particular softbox has got an optional accessory on the front called an egg crate. This egg crate is designed to give the light more direction, and it will also prevent the light from spilling all over the set. If I remove the egg crate, at the front of the softbox we've got the front diffusion panel, and what's unique about this softbox is that behind the front fascia we also have a secondary diffusion panel. This means the light has got to travel through 2 sets of diffusion material and the egg crate. This results in a soft, even light that will wrap around your subject beautifully. The second light that I'm going to be using today is going to be for the fill light. This light is a dado light DLH1X150, and like the Starlight, it too has been designed to be used with a softbox. Only in the case of this light, we're going to be using a mini softbox. The dado light DLH1X150 is a very tough and compact little light, and like the Photoflex Starlight, it too should last a lifetime. So this is the dado light mini softbox that we're going to attach onto the dado light DLH1X150. It's very easy to attach. Once the softbox is in place, we have these Velcro bits at the top to hold it in position. And there we have it. So here we have the dado light DLH1X150 soft light, complete with the dado light mini softbox. Like the larger softbox, this one too has two flaps either side to allow heat to be vented away from the front of the softbox, keeping the subject cooler. We also have two diffusers, one of which goes on the inside and one goes on the outside. The internal one is just fitted by these Velcro flaps, like so. And then the external one is very easy and quick to fit over the top, and again using some Velcro. The combination of these two diffusers will give a beautifully soft and even light that will help to fill out the shadows created by the key light. We also have, as an accessory, an egg crate. Again, simply fits over the top and is pushed into place with the Velcro on the sides. And this egg crate will give direction to the light and prevent it from spilling all over the set. So that's the Dado Light DLH1X 150 soft light that I'm going to be using as a fill light today. The third light that I'm going to be using today is for the backlight. The backlight is designed to put a small rim of light around the shoulders of the interviewee, as well as highlighting the hair from behind to give added depth and separation from the background. The light that I'm going to be using for this job is a Dado Light DLH4. The DLH4 is unique because it has this built-in focusable lens with a throw of over 100 feet. And because of this, you can light a best man giving speeches at a wedding from some distance away, for example. Also, because of the built-in lens system, the 150 watt bulb has got a light output equivalent to that of a 500 watt Fresnel. Also, the barn doors that come with the DLH4 will give added scope to controlling and shaping the light. The fourth and final light that I'm going to be using today is for the background light. The background light I'm using here is another Dado Light DLH4, only this time we're using a DP1 projection lens system. This lens attachment will allow me to use small metal Gobos discs like these two to project an image onto the background. And we also have here this focusable lens that allows you to focus or defocus the image being projected onto the back wall. By defocusing this image, we'll give the illusion of a shallower depth of field. We also have in the back of the projection attachment a slot where you can put small coloured gels to give a different feel to the shot. That's exactly what I'm going to be using this lens for throughout this DVD. Another accessory that I'm going to be using throughout this DVD are these Dado Light inline dimmers. These allow me to control the light output of all of the lights that I'm using today. This dimmer's got an on-off switch on the bottom, and you've got settings for 3400K, 3200K, or of course you can use the built-in inline dimmer, like so. Another important consideration of any set on a production is the health and safety issues. That's why I use these small boa bags. These heavy bags are designed to be placed around the stands of your lights to stop them falling over. The only other accessory that I'm going to be using throughout this DVD are these Vortex Media warm cards. They come in sets of half, 1, 2 and 3. And if you white balance to these instead of to a regular white card, your footage will take on a more warmer look. I personally shoot with warm card number half or number 1 on pretty much all my productions, as I like the slightly warmer look, and it also reduces that somewhat cold look that a lot of modern DV formats have a tendency to produce. You can also get a minus green card that you can use for white balancing when shooting under fluorescent lighting. I'm going to be using warm card number 1 throughout this DVD. Okay, so here we are at the location. Now the first thing I'd like to recommend is if you have chance, try and do a recce on the room that you're going to be filming in advance of the actual shoot, and pay particular attention to sound. In this room, for example, you can see a long elongated radiator in the background. Now when I did a recce on this room a few weeks ago, it was making quite a loud noise, so I checked to make sure I could turn the radiator off to eliminate this. Fortunately for me, I could. In this room, it's also quite echoey. As you can hear, it's got quite a lot of reverberation, so although I'm wearing a lavalier microphone here, you might want to experiment with different types of microphones, like a rifle mic that's got a very good back and side rejection, for example. Now, you might not be fortunate enough to be able to shoot in a room this large. You might be stuck in a much smaller room, so to allow you to get the camera further away from the subject being interviewed, you could put the camera outside in the hallway and shoot through the door and into the room. This is a trick that cameramen often use. Now, what I like to do is I like to shoot towards a corner, because I personally feel that having a corner as a background is a lot more pleasing than just a flat wall. Now, in terms of being able to control depth of field, what I do is I place the subject about 1/3 away from the back wall, and then I have the camera 2/3 in front of her or him. So in this case, the room's 30 foot from corner to corner. So what I'm going to do is I've positioned the chair 10 foot away from the back wall, and this camera would normally be back up in that wall, which is 20 feet further away. But the cameraman filming me is actually in that corner, which is why the camera's positioned here. So another thing to do is to have a look at the background for clutter. If you're shooting in somebody's office, for example, there might be a plant in the background or tables and chairs. So don't be afraid to move furniture and move plants around and obstacles that are going to look a bit cluttery. But do remember to put everything back the way you found it afterwards. Don't give cameramen a bad name for being messy people. So let's now bring in the model and I'll talk you through the lighting setup. Okay, so here we are. We have our model Amy. The first thing I would like to talk about is the chair and the importance of it. This chair, as you will notice, is a non-swiveling variety. The last thing you want to do is place your interviewee on a chair that swivels, which is a mistake some people often make when they're filming videos in offices, for example. A lot of interviewees are quite nervous and they would have a tendency to swivel from side to side on the chair without realizing that they're doing it, and the results in the final shots can look somewhat distracting. Next, I've been around this room and I've closed all the curtains and blinds to prevent any daylight from coming in. If I hadn't have done this, then we could have a mixed lighting temperature situation, which would yield some rather unusual results, and it might make it difficult to get a good balance. These lights I'm using here are 3200K tungsten, so we don't want any daylight coming in to mix with that. Next, the exposure. As I've already mentioned, it's a good idea to open the lens right up on the camera so you can control the depth of field and throw this background out of focus. Then you can use the dimmer controls on the lights or neutral density gels or even the ND filter wheel on the camera to control the exposure once you've done this. Finally, you'll notice that I'm holding a tape measure here because it's important to have the eye line of the subject being interviewed on a level with the camera's lens. So this is quite simple to do. You simply measure the eye line of the subject. In this case, it's 46 inches. And then we walk over to the camera and we measure the distance from the center of the lens to the floor, which, would you believe, is 46 inches. So we now have the camera's lens and height set to the same eye line as our model Amy. There are many ways of lighting somebody in an interview situation, but for me personally, the one method that consistently yields professional looking results is the 3-point lighting method, which consists of a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. But you can also add more lights to this equation too. Today, I'm also going to be using a background light to give even more definition to the shot. When I use the 3-point lighting setup, I like to use soft lights as I find them more flattering on the subject. However, sometimes soft lights aren't always going to be suitable. It depends on the nature of the subject being filmed. For example, if you're interviewing Vinnie Jones, a hard light might be a more fitting light source. The 3-point lighting technique is by far the most commonly used method of lighting people in interview situations in the television industry today. And if you follow this technique as a guide, you too will consistently achieve professional, yet more importantly, broadcastable images. What we're trying to do here is create a 3-dimensional image on a 2D television screen. And to do this, we have to sculpt and mold the light and shape it in a way that creates the illusion of 3-dimensionality. Okay, I would just like to talk briefly about composition and why it's so important. Quite often, poor composition can ruin an otherwise perfect shot. A common mistake people often make is to leave too much headroom. As you can see here, if I put the subject's eyes in the centre of the frame, it just doesn't look right with all this extra space above the subject's head. So if I tilt the camera down and place the subject's eyes approximately 1/3 away from the top of the screen, it suddenly takes on a more pleasing look. It's also important to leave looking room for the subject to look into. Again, as you can see here, if I place the subject in the centre of the screen, it just looks a little bit odd. The only exception to this rule is when a newsreader is directly talking to the camera. But in this instance, we have a subject being interviewed, so we need to turn the camera round and pan it until the subject's eyes are approximately 1/3 away from the edge of the screen, so that she can address the interviewer, who will be sitting out of shot approximately 3 feet off camera. An easy way to remember the composition is to use the rule of thirds. This is where the picture's image is broken up into thirds. As you can see here, we've got the subject's eyes placed approximately 1/3 from the top of the screen and 1/3 from the left of the screen, which is on the cross line to the top left side of the screen in this instance. If you follow the rule of thirds as a rough guide, it will help you achieve really good composition. Finally, another important thing to remember is not to cut off your subject at natural joints, such as the wrist or elbow. Here, I've got Amy composed so that the bottom of the frame is cutting through the middle of her elbow, which looks somewhat unpleasing. Now, if I zoom in a bit and recompose the shot, like so, she's now cut off halfway between the shoulder and elbow, which yields a much more pleasing and professional result. Okay, so we have all the lights set up. We have Amy positioned on the chair facing between the key light and the camera that's recording her, with the interviewer's chair positioned just a few feet off camera. Now, the key light is positioned about 45 degrees coming down onto Amy, and then to this side we have the fill light, which is designed to basically gently fill in the shadows that are created by the key. Now, the fill light I don't have at a 45-degree angle coming down. I've actually got it positioned lower, closer to Amy's eye line, because this helps to smooth out the shadows under the eyes and under the chin. The fill light, as I've explained already, is a soft light, and I've got the output of this light set to about 2 stops less, approximately, than the fill light. If I just use the dimmer control here, you can see that if I remove it, we have a shadow on the right-hand side of Amy's face, and if I bring it up too high, then it will actually lose all modelling and make the image look too flat. So what we're going to do is just bring it down and go for something that's about halfway between, like that. That retains a nice amount of modelling on the interviewee's face. Round to this side, we have the background light, and in the background lights, I have 2 extra accessories: a gobo that's basically giving this projection of a Venetian blind effect on the back wall, and I also have a coloured gel which is giving a little bit of warmth to that shot. Now, on this light we have a focusable lens, so if I bring it into focus here, you can see that that gives the illusion that the camera has a very wide depth of field. So what we're going to do is adjust the focus on that to throw it out of focus slightly, which gives the illusion that the background is a lot further away from the subject than it actually is, giving the illusion of a very narrow depth of field. So if we move further around to the back, we have here the backlight, which is shining down onto Amy's head and shoulders from behind, and this basically is creating that rim light around Amy's shoulders and highlighting the hair. Now, this is controlled via the Dedolight DLH4's built-in optical lens, with further control from the barn doors. Now what I can do here is adjust the output of the light to take that off, and you just bring it up just until you get the right amount of hair light and rim light around the shoulders. If you have it too over the top, it can give that 1980s glamour look, which we don't really want in today's video. So I'm going to bring that down slightly just until I get the right amount. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and turn off the other lights so you can see the effect that the backlight has on its own. As you can see, with the backlight off, there's no rim light in on Amy's shoulders or hair. If I turn it all the way up, then that can be a little bit overkill. And if I bring it down slightly, I'm going to get just a nice amount of rim light around the shoulders and on Amy's hair. It's also worth pointing out at this stage that this technique is often used in some television crime programs where the person being interviewed wants to remain anonymous. So now I'm going to turn on just the key light on its own, and I'm going to turn off the backlight. So here we have just the key on its own, and this is the effect that it gives on Amy. It's lighting up her face from the left-hand side, and then if I come round to the fill and turn that on, you can see the effect that the fill light has just to fill in those shadows gently on the right-hand side of Amy's face. So when we have the fill and the key set, that's when we can come round and turn on the backlight again, so you can see the effect of that. And then finally, I'm just going to come round and turn on the background light. Now the background light again shouldn't distract from the image. It should just be subtle, just to give a little bit of depth and separation in the shot. If I turn it off, the image suddenly looks a little bit flat, but just by bringing it up, it just gives that subtle background image to give depth and definition. Right, what I'm going to do now is just show you some of the effects that you can create on the background by using different coloured gels and different gobos. So as you can see here, this background is basically a small Venetian blind with no coloured gel in it at all. If I drop a coloured gel into the filter tray of the projection holder, you can see that it now takes on a warm look. Now you can get warm coloured gels or colder gels or even colour effects gels, so you can give the image a much different feel. Another choice is this arched window. I'm just going to throw this one slightly out of focus to give the illusion of a narrow depth of field. And I'm going to drop into this one the blue coloured gel to give it a slightly colder look. Yet another effect is this random pattern gobo. Again, we can adjust the focus here, taking it a long way out of focus, bringing it into sharp focus. I'm going to set it about there, just to give the illusion of a narrow depth of field. And in this one, I'm going to place the magenta gel as a colour effect. Another effect for a gobo is another random pattern. And as you can see, this exaggerates the point. When it's too far in focus, it makes Amy look like she's blending into the background. Yet, by just throwing it out of focus slightly, it gives a lot more separation from the background and Amy. You can leave the background in plain with no gels at all, but in this case, I'm just going to drop in a green gel just to change the feel and mood of the shot. So there we have it, the industry standard 3-point lighting technique. I hope you've picked up some useful tips along the way, and I hope this DVD helps you improve the lighting in your future productions. So good luck, and thank you for watching.